I never thought my own brother would raise a bottle against my head, just because I said no. One moment. I was standing quietly in my parents' living room, refusing to hand over the condo I'd worked a lifetime to earn. The next, I was on the floor, bleeding, dizzy, while 100 stunned guests watched in silence. They thought fear would break me. They were wrong. 3 weeks later, I came back, not to explain, not to ask for an apology, but to hand them the court order to sell the very house they tried to use as leverage. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about boundaries, about reclaiming what's yours when even your family says you shouldn't have it. Before we begin, tell me, have you ever been made to feel guilty for protecting your success? Leave a comment, hit like if this feels familiar, and stay with me. You'll want to hear how this story ends. My name is Callan Rhodes. I'm 34 years old, a senior software engineer living in Silverbridge Bay, California. My condo, a 2-bedroom corner unit overlooking the city's marina, is worth $660,000 on paper. But to me, it's worth much more. It's the culmination of every weekend I worked through, every vacation I skipped, every silent moment I swallowed instead of speaking up. My home is the physical proof that I built something no one else ever gave me. Growing up, I understood early that love in the Rhodes household wasn't evenly distributed. It didn't come freely, and it certainly didn't come my way. My parents, Meredith and Charles, had eyes only for my younger brother, Derek. He was the golden boy, charming, athletic, always the center of attention. Even as a kid, I noticed how the world bent around him. When Derek needed new cleats for soccer, they bought them that same day. When I needed new shoes, Mom would sigh and remind me that mine still had a few more months in them. At 16, I was working part-time after school and tutoring on weekends to save for college. Derek crashed his second car that same year, a birthday gift, of course, and got a newer model within a month. Boys will be boys. Dad chuckled, handing over the keys like it was just another Tuesday. There was no college fund waiting for me, I asked once, timidly, during dinner. My father cleared his throat. Callan, you're smart. You'll get scholarships. Besides, community college is a great option. So I worked 30 hours a week while carrying a full course load. I went from community college to a state university on a scholarship I earned, not one I was given. I taught myself how to code at night, built small freelance apps in exchange for grocery money, and slowly carved out a path in an industry where women like me don't get many second chances. There were no graduation parties, no proud family photos, just me, a cap, a quiet smile, and a long list of student loans. 6 years into my career, I finally bought my condo. I didn't ask anyone to help with the down payment. I didn't even tell them I was closing until after the papers were signed. Their response, Meredith texted, "That's nice. Maybe Derek can stay there when he visits the city. That's how it's always been. My wins are invisible, my space is negotiable, and my boundaries optional." But this condo, it changed something in me. For the first time, I had something no one else could touch. No one could call it a family investment. No one could claim a share. It was mine. And maybe, for the first time in my life, I started to realize just how much of myself I'd given away, just to be tolerated. This time, I wasn't going to let that happen. Not again. After I closed on the condo, something shifted in how my family spoke to me. Not dramatically, just a change in tone, in passing comments, in the way certain words lingered a little too long. It started with my mother's voice over the phone one quiet Sunday afternoon. "Callan, I've been meaning to say, that place of yours. It's really spacious for one person, 2 bedrooms, right, and a balcony." She laughed softly, like it was just a casual observation. "Must be nice to have all that space to yourself." I let the comment hang. I was used to my mother's passive observations, but this one felt pointed. A week later, I hosted my niece Sophia's birthday party at the community park near my building. Derek and Vanessa had asked if I could help organize. It was too far for their usual friends, they said. But I knew they just didn't want to pay for a venue. At the party, while the kids played and the adults clutched coffee cups like lifelines, Derek stood beside me and said, "You know, Sophia's getting to that age where she really needs her own space. Aiden, too. That condo of yours is in a great school district. It's just something to think about. Something to think about. Like it was a business transaction I hadn't agreed to. I smiled tightly and nodded, pretending I didn't feel the undercurrent in his voice. At Thanksgiving, it escalated. The whole family sat around my parents' long oak dining table, one that had seen decades of holidays, arguments, and declarations that looked like family but often felt like war. As I passed the green beans to Vanessa, she smiled sweetly and asked, "Have you ever thought of downsizing?" Callan, that second bedroom could really change our lives right now. We're getting so cramped at our place. Across the table, Meredith gave a knowing hum. "You're not even using it. Are you such a shame for it to sit empty?" Charles nodded in agreement, carving into the turkey. Back when families stuck together, we shared everything: homes, meals, space. That's how we got through hard times. No one said it outright. No one had to. They weren't asking. They were conditioning. That night, as I helped clear plates and wash dishes, Sloane texted me from her own family's Thanksgiving. "Are they still hinting?" I stepped onto the back porch, stared into the chilled dark of my parents' yard, and replied, "It's getting worse. But I think they're just being pushy. Nothing serious." A moment passed. Then her next message came through. "Don't be so sure. You said they've been struggling financially. People get bold when they feel entitled." I stared at that word, entitled, and felt something tighten in my chest. Sloane knew my history. She knew how often I'd brushed off what I should have confronted, how many times I'd convinced myself they meant well. But this time felt different, like a tide was building beneath their politeness. Still, I tucked it away. I didn't want to overthink. I was exhausted. And honestly, I still wanted to believe my family wouldn't cross certain lines. But deep down, I knew better, because they never had to say the words out loud. The implication had always been there. What's yours should be ours. What you've earned, you owe. And if you don't give it, we'll find a way to take it. The hints kept coming, like crumbs they hoped I would follow. But I wasn't hungry anymore. Not for their approval, not for their praise, and definitely not for their version of family. I just didn't know. They were already planning the feast. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, digital, casual, a subject line that read, "Join us for Derek's 40th. A milestone celebration." It came from Vanessa's email, not my parents'. The details were short and sweet. Saturday evening, 6:30 p.m., at the Rhodes family home, 1218 Redwood Hollow Lane. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I closed the tab. At first, I had no intention of going. I told myself I'd been through this enough times, smiling through digs wrapped in laughter, swallowing hurt that showed up dressed as concern. I didn't want to endure another night where I was either ignored or subtly insulted. But then the messages started. "Callan, you have to come," my mother texted. "It's a special night. The whole family will be there." The next day, Charles called. "Your brother would be devastated if you weren't there. We're planning something important." And then, Derek, the one who only ever messaged when his Wi-Fi wasn't working. "Hey sis, hope you can make it Saturday. We've got something we want to talk to you about." That sentence lingered longer than it should have. I showed the text to Sloane over coffee. She stirred her drink slowly, watching me like she was weighing how far she could push without pushing me away. "They're laying it on thick this time," she said. "You know what that means." I nodded. "I do. But if I don't show up, it gives them ammunition. If I go, at least I can keep an eye on what they're trying to set up." So I went. I chose my outfit carefully. Professional, not flashy. A navy wrap dress, flats instead of heels. No jewelry except a watch. I wrapped Derek's gift in silver paper, an expensive watch I didn't want to buy, with a neutral card that said nothing personal. I parked a block away from the house, partly because the driveway was full, mostly because I didn't want my Audi to become a conversation piece. The Rhodes house hadn't changed. Same white columns, same flagstone path, same wreath on the door they brought out every birthday and holiday. But up close, the paint was chipping, the flower beds are untended, the signs of strain were quiet, but they were there. Meredith opened the door with a smile that didn't quite make it to her eyes. Callan, you made it. She pulled me into a hug that felt like a photo op. Everyone's out back. Derek will be so happy to see you. As I stepped inside, the scent hit me. Lemon polish, pipe tobacco, fading floral perfume. It all smelled like memory. Familiar, yes, but not comforting. Charles appeared from the kitchen. There she is. The busy tech exec finally finds time for family. His voice was cheerful, but the edge was unmistakable. I wouldn't miss Derek's big day, I said softly. As I made my way to the backyard, I passed by their voices, low, hushed, too close to the hallway not to be overheard. She came, my father said. Are you sure about the timing? Meredith asked. She won't make a scene, he replied. Image matters too much to her. I paused. My heart beat louder than the music. Out back, the yard had been transformed. String lights, catering tables, a rented bar. Derek never did anything halfway, especially not when someone else was footing the bill. 100 people mingled, old neighbors, former teammates, forgotten cousins. I placed the gift on a table already piled high with wrapped boxes, then accepted a glass of wine from a passing server. The comments started almost immediately. Is that Callan still single? Aunt Evelyn asked. Loud enough for 3 people to hear. My friend's son just moved to Silverbridge. He's a dentist. Your condo must be worth a fortune by now, said George. A longtime friend of my father's. Smart investment. Derek could really use a place like that. Your parents are so proud of Derek, someone else added. Like I needed the reminder. I smiled. I nodded. I excused myself for more wine. Then came the moment. Derek entered with Vanessa and the kids, soaking up applause like a local celebrity. He was dressed in designer everything, shoes, belt, and smile. When he saw me, he made a direct line across the lawn. You came, he exclaimed, pulling me into a cologne-drenched hug. My successful sister made time for little old me. Happy birthday. Derek. He turned to the crowd nearby, keeping his arm around me. My sister, the tech genius, big salary, big condo. Maybe some of that success will rub off on me tonight. Huh? The joke wasn't funny, but no one told him that. I excused myself again. This time, to the food table. I needed space, air, distance. 2 hours passed in small talk and strategic silence. I answered no questions about my personal life. I offered nothing, but I noticed everything. The way Meredith kept glancing my way. The way Charles leaned in to whisper when he thought I wasn't looking. And then, a hand on my shoulder. Callan, my mother said. Could you join us in your father's study? The music faded behind me as I followed her down the hallway. The moment I stepped inside that room, I knew. This wasn't a birthday party, it was a setup, and they were finally ready to say what they'd been implying for months. The study hadn't changed since I was a child. Dark mahogany shelves lined with leather-bound books no one ever read. A desk is too large for the room. A single high-backed chair that belonged only to Charles, and the same wooden seat tucked off to the side. The one I always ended up in. Small, uncushioned, out of place. My father motioned to it as I entered. Close the door. Will you? He settled behind the desk. Meredith and Derek took the leather sofa like they'd rehearsed it. I sat in silence, my hands folded in my lap, my back straight despite the discomfort. Charles began, his fingers steepled in front of him. Callan, we wanted to have a private discussion, something important, as a family. I said nothing. Derek leaned forward. His tone was calm, measured, too measured. You know things have been tough lately, the economy, the business climate. Charles nodded, and with Derek's app development costs rising, we've been thinking about how we can better support each other, as a unit. Meredith reached for my hand. I pulled it back before she could touch me. What we're proposing, dear, she said gently, is something that benefits everyone. Derek and Vanessa, they need space. The kids are growing fast. Their school district is underfunded. Aiden's struggling. Derek jumped in, as if he couldn't wait to deliver the next line. Your condo in Silverbridge, it's perfect. Better schools, safer area, closer to the city. It's just sitting there. And you're one person in a 2-bedroom. I stared at him, unblinking. We're asking, Charles said carefully. that you sign it over to Derek and his family. You can easily get another place. Something smaller, more suited to someone in your situation. The way he said your situation sliced sharper than he realized. A beat of silence fell. Then I spoke. You want me to give Derek my condo, the property I spent 10 years saving for, just hand it over. It's not about ownership, Meredith said quickly. It's about family, about doing the right thing. And what do I get? I asked, my voice still even. In this arrangement, the room tensed. Charles cleared his throat. The satisfaction of helping, of knowing your success is lifting others. Derek nodded. You've always had more than you needed, Callan, and we've never asked for much. I laughed, quietly, breathless. Never asked. I looked at each of them. You've taken plenty. The car loan, the emergency funds, the gifts, the silence. Then I stood. No. The word landed heavily. Final. I'm not signing anything. That condo is mine. I earned it. I paid for it. I live in it. And I'm not giving it to anyone. Derek's smile vanished. Selfish. He spat. Always the selfish one. Some things never change. My father's tone sharpened. Don't take that tone. Young lady, your brother has a family to care for. What do you have? A job, a high-rise apartment? That's not legacy. That's ego. I met his eyes. And I suppose legacy means handing over everything I've built so your favorite child doesn't have to struggle a day in his life. Meredith's voice turned cold. After everything we've done for you. I stared at her, like what no one answered. I put myself through school. I continued. I worked 2 jobs while you praised Derek for making a high school varsity team. I paid every cent of that condo. You didn't help me. You barely noticed me. Derek stood. Little Miss Perfect. You think you're better than us because you worked hard? Newsflash. Life's not fair. You had brains. I didn't. That's not my fault, I said. Charles slammed a hand against the desk. This isn't about the past. It's about what's best for the family. And what's best is for me to sacrifice. Again, I moved toward the door. This conversation is over. Derek blocked my path. You can't walk away. We've already talked to a realtor. The kids are enrolled in the new district. It's happening. I froze. You did what Meredith tried to soothe. We thought, once you understood, you'd agree. You thought wrong. I stepped around Derek, my voice low. You're not taking my home, not today, not ever. I left the study, left the house, left the illusion, but I still didn't know just how far they'd already gone. I made it as far as the entryway before I heard him behind me. Don't walk away from me. Derek's voice cut through the music like a jagged knife. Conversations halted. Glasses stilled midair. I didn't stop. I reached for my purse, still sitting on the side table beneath the family portrait, the one where I'd been cropped out years ago. He followed, loud and fast, 34 years old, and still only thinking about yourself. I felt eyes, dozens of them, watching, listening, waiting to see if I would shatter the way they always expected me to. I kept moving. Meredith tried to intercept me at the door, her hand on my arm. Callan, please. Just think about it. We can discuss details later. I pulled away. There's nothing to discuss. The answer is no. Charles's voice rose behind her. After everything this family has given you, this is how you repay us. I turned, my fingers tightening around the doorknob. What exactly have you given me? My voice was low, but steady. What wasn't already handed to Derek 3 times over. Don't confuse my boundaries with betrayal. Derek stormed into view, his face flushed, twisted with something between rage and humiliation. Don't bring me into your victim act, he growled. Just because you're jealous of a real life I cut in, built on guilt trips and handouts. He moved closer. Too close. You think you're better than us. Don't you, he hissed, with your big job, your fancy condo, walking around like you're the damn queen of Silverbridge. I didn't respond, and maybe that's what did it. Because when you refuse to play your assigned role in a family like mine, when you stand still instead of kneeling, they panic. They strike. Derek reached for the champagne bottle, the one resting in an ice bucket on the nearby side table. I saw it too late, saw the flick of his wrist, the shine of glass in motion, and then, impact. The shatter rang through the room before the pain even registered. A sharp, Searing heat bloomed across my scalp. I staggered back, hand to my head. Warmth spilled between my fingers. Blood. There was a gasp, then screaming. Time slowed. I stumbled forward, vision blurring, knees folding. Voices rose in chaos behind me. Call an ambulance. Somebody help her. Strong arms caught me just before I hit the floor. My legs gave out. My body gave in. The last thing I saw before everything went dark. Derek, still standing in the doorway, still holding the broken neck of the bottle, and on his face. Not panic, not regret, but something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. The world came back in pieces. Fluorescent lights above me, a slow, steady beep to my left. The weight of gauze pressing against my scalp, and the dull, throbbing ache that pulsed with every breath I took. I tried to speak, but my mouth felt full of cotton. She's waking up, a voice whispered. Gentle, familiar. Sloane. She leaned into my field of vision, her eyes tired but calm. You're in the hospital, Cal. You're safe now. I blinked slowly, tried to sit up, failed. Concussion, she added softly. 15 stitches, no skull fracture. Thank God. But they're keeping you overnight for monitoring. 15 stitches, all for saying one word no. A nurse came in, asked me my name, the date. If I remembered what happened, I did. Every second. The pressure of the bottle, the silence that followed. Derek's face, the look in his eyes. He hit me, I whispered. Sloane nodded. Everyone saw. The police were already at the house by the time the ambulance pulled away. Derek's in custody. My body lay still, but inside, something was moving. Not rage, not grief, clarity. The kind that only comes after you've been broken open. That night, I didn't sleep, even with medication. I just stared at the ceiling and thought of every moment I had minimized, every insult I'd laughed off, every time I told myself they were family, and that meant something. Sloane stayed in the room, on the small recliner by the window. She'd already called Dana Wells, her cousin, and one of the sharpest attorneys in the state. She'll meet us tomorrow, Sloane said, and she's bringing someone from her team, a forensic specialist. Why, I asked. Sloane hesitated. Because, Callan, I think this goes deeper than what happened at the party. And it did. Dana arrived the next morning, professional, efficient. But what struck me most was the way she listened. Without interruption, without disbelief. Just focus. I told her everything. The pressure, the hints, the meeting in the study. The moment Derek said they'd already spoken to a realtor. I want to press charges, I said firmly. You should, she replied, and that's just the start. By the afternoon. Dana had already begun her own digging, and what she uncovered turned my blood cold. Callan, she said gently, laying out documents on the hospital tray table. 3 months ago, a business called Rhodes Family Solutions was registered in the state of California. CEO Derek Rhodes, mailing address, your condo. I stared at the papers. I never gave permission for that. No, Dana said, you didn't. Which makes this not just unethical, but illegal. There was more. Utility accounts, credit applications, school enrollment forms for Derek's kids, all listing my address. It wasn't just a birthday surprise. It was a premeditated strategy, a plan built on forged names, faked documents, and the assumption that I'd stay quiet, that I'd do what I always did, comply. But this time, something had shifted. Maybe it was the glass against my skull. Maybe it was the blood on the floor. Maybe it was finally seeing them for who they truly were. Whatever it was, I wasn't staying silent anymore. 2 days after the assault, Dana returned with a manila folder so thick it barely fit in her briefcase. She placed it gently on Sloane's kitchen table, where I'd been recovering in soft clothes and borrowed slippers, nursing a dull ache that never seemed to leave my head. I found something, she said calmly. Actually, I found several things. She slid the folder across the table. Start here. I opened it, and the first document made me sit straighter. Property records, names, deed information. A familiar address is printed in bold. 1218 Redwood Hollow Lane, my parents' house. Next to Charles and Meredith Rhodes, printed in crisp, legal font, was another name. Mine. I stared at it for a long moment, not trusting my eyes. Is this a mistake? Dana shook her head. 5 years ago, your parents refinanced their mortgage. The bank required a cosigner due to their debt-to-income ratio. You signed the paperwork. Didn't you? I remembered. Vaguely. A phone call. My father sounded unusually polite, just a formality. He had said, "We need your name on it for a quick approval. You won't be responsible for anything." I was in the middle of a product launch. I didn't ask questions. I signed where they told me. Dana tapped the document. They didn't just list you as a co-signer. They added you to the deed. That makes you a legal co-owner. My heart pounded. They never told me, because they never expected you to find out. She handed me another sheet. It gets worse. It was a registration form. Rhodes Family Solutions, LLC. Business address my condo. CEO Derek Rhodes. Board members Charles and Meredith Rhodes. I looked up, my hands starting to tremble. They were planning this for months. Weren't they? Dana nodded. The business was created 90 days ago, but Derek started listing your condo as his official residence even earlier. His bank records show a credit application using your address, utilities, a car loan, enrollment forms for his children in the Silverbridge School District, all tied to your condo. Sloane stood at the edge of the kitchen, arms crossed tightly. They weren't just hoping to convince you. They were preparing to take it, I whispered. Yes, Dana confirmed. And legally speaking, there's a word for that. Several. Actually, identity misrepresentation, financial fraud, unauthorized business use of private property. I sat back, the realization crashing over me in waves. This wasn't emotional manipulation. This wasn't family pressure. This was a strategy. They didn't ask me to sign over my condo because they hoped I'd be generous. They asked because they had already begun moving the pieces, assuming I'd be too slow, too soft, too loyal to stop them. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't that daughter anymore. I wasn't the quiet girl hoping to be seen. I was the woman with her name on a deed they never thought I'd read. And I had a lawyer now, one who wasn't afraid to dig deeper. They played a long game, I said quietly. But so can I. Dana closed the folder. Then let's make them regret underestimating you. I always thought the day I stood up to them would feel loud, explosive, full of fury. But it didn't. It felt quiet, grounded, like stepping out from under something heavy and realizing you'd been carrying it for far too long. The morning after Dana showed me the property records, I told her I was ready. No more waiting. No more hoping they'd come to their senses. No more soft boundaries they could push without consequence. We filed 3 motions in 1 week. First, a restraining order was issued against Derek for the assault. Second, a criminal complaint, with full intent to press charges. Third, a civil suit for damages, emotional, physical, and financial. And finally, Dana's specialty, a partition action. I was a legal co-owner of 1218 Redwood Hollow Lane, and under state law, that gave me the right to force the sale of the property if the other owners were acting in bad faith or committing fraud, which, by all accounts, they had. It's not just retaliation, Dana told me as she filed the paperwork. It's a consequence, and it's long overdue. The backlash came quickly, not from the court, but from the people who once called themselves my family. Texts, voicemails, emails from numbers I didn't recognize. Callan, he's your brother. He made a mistake. We can work this out as a family. You're better than this. You're making us look bad. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I changed my number, blocked every contact, told Sloane to ignore anything that came through. Dana set up a communication protocol, legal correspondence only. If they wanted to speak to me now, they could go through someone paid to hear them. What surprised me most, it was how easy it felt. After all the years I spent trying to make myself small to keep the peace, I finally understood. Silence is not surrender. Distance is not cruelty. And drawing a line is not the same as drawing blood. Still, they tried. My mother left voicemails through Dana's office line. Please tell her we didn't mean for things to go so far. My father emailed, claiming the condo plan had been a misunderstanding, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. But their real feelings showed up in the legal responses. They contested everything. claimed I had verbally agreed to transfer the condo, that I had offered to step away from the house, that Derek's attack was provoked by stress and emotional manipulation. They weren't apologizing. They were covering tracks. And still, they underestimated me. They thought I'd cave to guilt, that I'd flinch when things got formal, that I'd give in, like always, before it made the holiday newsletter. But I didn't. I reviewed every page. I signed every form. I met every deadline. And when Dana asked if I was certain, if I truly wanted to force the sale of the home they'd lived in for over 30 years, I said yes, not out of spite, not out of anger, but because it was time. Time they learned that love without respect is not love, that control dressed as care is still control, and that if you build your life on borrowed foundations, eventually, the ground gives way. In the weeks that followed, my life became a stack of documents and strategy sessions. Every morning began with emails from Dana. Every evening ended with folders spread across Sloane's dining table. Proof, signatures, timelines, and right there in the center of it all was Raymond Klein, a forensic financial investigator with the calm of a surgeon and the instincts of a bloodhound. He didn't talk much, but when he did, you listened. The pattern started 14 months ago, he said one afternoon, flipping open a binder. Your parents refinanced their mortgage again, but this time, they forged your signature. He slid the paper toward me. Not even close to your handwriting. I stared at it. Loopy cursive, a child's imitation of my name. But legally, it had worked until now. They used that refinance to fund Derek's failed app. Raymond continued, and that wasn't the only document they altered. He turned to another tab. Business registration forms, credit applications, a second LLC, Mitchell and Rhodes Holdings, is also registered to my condo's address. Same fake signature, same trail of entitlement. They were using your identity, Dana said, her voice tight, piece by piece, brick by brick. There was even an email, pulled from Derek's cloud backup, obtained by court order, sent to a private lender 2 months before the assault. Once Callan signs, we'll have the property. The rest will fall into place. But I never signed, and nothing fell into place. Except their lies. Then came the final insult, a series of internal family texts obtained during discovery. Messages between Charles, Meredith, and Derek discussing a verbal agreement they would later claim I made, to hand over the condo in exchange for being released from the house deed. An agreement I never made. A conversation that never happened. But one thing they were willing to swear to under oath. Dana didn't flinch. Neither did I. We'll bring everything, she said. Every forged form, every unauthorized registration, every false claim. The hearing was scheduled on a rainy Thursday morning, family court. Civil Division, Judge Morales, stern, composed, and famously allergic to theatrics. I took the stand. I told the truth, not just about the bottle or the broken glass, but about a childhood spent invisible, a life built in silence, a family that saw love as leverage. Dana handled the rest, calm, sharp, relentless. Raymond followed with charts, comparisons, and timelines so precise they made the opposing counsel visibly sweat. When it was over, Judge Morales looked down at the papers, then back up at the courtroom. The evidence, she said, is not only sufficient, it is overwhelming. She ruled in our favor, on all counts. The restraining order remained in place. The criminal case moved forward. The civil claim was upheld, and the partition sale of the house was approved. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For the first time in years, I felt the air fill every corner of my chest. They had taken so much, but not this, not the truth, not the law, and not me. Exactly 3 weeks after Judge Morales signed the order, I stood once again at the gates of 1218 Redwood Hollow Lane. Only this time, I wasn't coming home. I was coming to serve notice. The sky was soft and clear, the kind of morning that pretends everything is fine. Birds chirped, lawns shimmered from sprinklers. But parked beside me were 2 vehicles that told a different story. Dana's sleek black sedan and a county sheriff's cruiser. Officer Lopez stepped out first, clipboard in hand, calm, firm, a quiet presence meant to prevent escalation. Everything's in order. Miss Rhodes, he said. You ready? I nodded. Dana handed me the envelope. Inside were the official documents: court-approved property sale, transfer of deed, eviction notice. Effective within 48 hours, the house had already been sold to a developer. A cash offer. No negotiation. It would be gone by summer. I walked slowly toward the front door, each step echoing like a memory. I remembered birthdays on this porch, dinners where I sat silently through praise for Derek, conversations where love was offered like a paycheck, only if earned, and only if convenient. But this morning, I didn't carry grief. I carried proof. Charles opened the door. His face dropped when he saw the badge. Then it dropped further when he saw me. "Callan, what is this?" Officer Lopez stepped forward. "Sir, I'm here to serve an official court order for eviction. You have 48 hours to vacate the property." Charles looked between me and the officer. "This is our home." "No," I said quietly. "It was a shared property. You forged my name. You abused that trust. Now, it belongs to the court, and to the new owner." Meredith appeared in the hallway. She looked smaller than I remembered. Robe still on, eyes red. "Callan, please, we didn't think you'd take it this far." I met her gaze. "You didn't think I'd fight back." From behind them, Derek emerged, shoulders tense, jaw clenched. "You think this makes you better than us, standing here with your little army?" "Throwing your family onto the street." I stepped aside so Dana could speak, but I didn't need her to. I looked at all three of them, my mother, my father, my brother, and said, "This isn't revenge. This is a consequence, the result of choices you made, together, knowingly, and repeatedly." By now, a few neighbors had come out onto their lawns, watching quietly, whispers, side glances, familiar faces who'd once said, "You should smile more, your family's so lucky to have you." They were learning too. "You have until Saturday at 10 a.m., Officer Lopez continued. "We can provide assistance if needed." Charles reached out as if to stop me. "You're going to let strangers demolish 30 years of our life?" I shook my head. "You demolished it yourselves the day you decided what was mine should be yours. Without asking. Without apology." Derek laughed bitterly. "You've always been dramatic, and you've always expected to be forgiven," I replied. Behind us, the moving truck rolled up early, not for them, but for the developer. The first sign that their chapter in this house had already ended. I turned to go. My voice was low, but clear enough for every witness to hear. "I'm not here to humiliate you. I'm here because you left me no other choice." And with that, I walked away. Not angry, not broken, just done. 2 days after the eviction, I returned to my condo in Silverbridge Bay. The keys felt heavier in my hand than they had the day I first closed. Not because of fear, not even because of memory, but because of everything that had happened in between. Everything I now carried different. I stood in the doorway for a moment before stepping inside. Let the stillness greet me like an old friend. Let the quiet say what no one else could. "You're safe here now." I unpacked slowly. Not just boxes, but emotions. The pain hadn't disappeared. The betrayal still whispered in corners, but it no longer screamed. It no longer owned the room. And that was something. Sloane helped me set up my new space again. Same sofa, same desk by the window, but everything felt cleaner, not in decor, but in energy. The clutter was gone, the guilt, the gaslighting, the gnawing obligation. I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. I finally had space to breathe, to heal, and to begin something I hadn't dared imagine before. A life that wasn't built on proving my worth to people who'd never see it. Therapy became a rhythm I leaned into. Dr. Monroe specialized in financial abuse and family estrangement. She didn't rush me, didn't diagnose me into silence. She just listened. "You didn't choose this path," she said in one session, "but you're choosing what happens next." That's power. It didn't feel like power at first. It felt like starting over in a life that looked the same but was completely unfamiliar. But week after week, I began to notice the small shifts. I slept through the night. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. I walked through my building's lobby without scanning for shadows. And then, one evening in early fall, Sloane sent me a link. A nonprofit for women recovering from financial trauma was looking for mentors. Volunteers who could help others navigate the same maze I had clawed through. I didn't think twice. 3 weeks later, I stood at the front of a room, speaking softly but with certainty, to 5 women who looked like versions of me at different points in time. Sometimes the hardest people to protect yourself from, I told them, are the ones who taught you to smile through harm. But harm is still harm, even when it's wrapped in holiday cards and the word family. They nodded. Some wiped tears. That was when I knew. This was never about punishment. Not for me. I didn't want them to suffer. I just wanted them to stop holding the pen in my story. And now they couldn't. I had taken it back, line by line, page by page, not with revenge, not with anger, but with truth. And for the first time, with peace. 6 months later, I stood beneath the soft lights of the Women's Financial Empowerment Center. Whiteboard behind me, a circle of chairs in front. The smell of coffee and paper handouts filled the air. This wasn't a courtroom. It wasn't a house on Redwood Hollow. It was something better. A space built on dignity, on listening, on permission. The women in this group came from different places, different ages, different stories. But every single one of them had heard the same line I once did. You're family, so you owe us. And today, I was here to help them unlearn that. I want to share something with you, I began. Voice calm but anchored. It took me 34 years to believe it, so if it feels hard to hear, that's okay. No one moved. I looked at their faces, open, cautious, brave. No one, I said softly. Not even the people who raised you. Not even the ones who say they love you. You have the right to take what you built. Not your money, not your time, not your peace. A pause. That includes your home, your credit, your silence, your future. Some nodded slowly. One woman wiped her cheek. I smiled, not because it was easy, but because it was true. After class, I stayed behind, helped pack up chairs, collected leftover pens and folded worksheets. Sloane came by to meet me for dinner, arms full of takeaway containers and that gentle smirk she always wore when proud. You know, she said, I think this is the healthiest I've ever seen you. I glanced around the empty room. Feels strange, to feel full without fighting for it. We walked out into the cool night air. No voicemails, no threats. No apology texts with strings attached. My parents hadn't contacted me in months. Derek's trial was ongoing. I didn't check the updates. Dana handled everything now, and I trusted her to keep the past where it belonged. I used to think I lost my family, I told Sloane. You didn't lose them, she replied. You just stopped calling it family when it never was. And she was right, because today, my circle was smaller, but it was real. No one here kept score, no one demanded pieces of me, and no one mistook blood for ownership. This was the family I chose, and for the first time in my life, I chose right. I needed distance, peace, a life that no longer revolved around proving my worth to people who only saw me when they needed something. Now, they don't speak my name, and that's fine, because I know exactly who I am, without them. If you've ever had to walk away to protect your peace, you're not alone. Leave a comment if this story reminded you of your own, and thank you for staying with me until the end.